Go. Hello, fellow traders. Tis I, the Rumpled One, coming to you on Tuesday, October the 17th. The year's 2023. Let's talk trading. Trading stories we tell ourselves. Less than 1 hour is noise with Walmal. These videos are for educational purposes only. Your results may differ from mine. Walmal. How many times have we heard that, trading 1 minute, 5 minute charts is just noise?
Galley? Not quite, but it seems that way sometimes. Especially from quote unquote the haters that are out there.
Yeah.
but that's their prerogative. They can do what they want with that, and that's fine. Tell you what, I'll make some money on noise, and you guys can sit there and hate on me. And that's fine. And I'm not talking about anybody specific right now. I'm just talking in general.
Right.
But and I can understand their perspective too. And that's the thing. It's what story have you told yourself? It's what this whole month or so has been about. What story are you telling yourself? You're sitting out there and you're trading off monthly or daily charts or weekly charts. So, here's a reality. Yeah, the 1 minute chart probably is noisy in terms of what you're concerned about, because you're sitting out there putting a buy out there to occur at some level that may be 50, 60, 100, 200 pips away, and you're setting a stop loss, 100 pips below where we're at, and you're putting a TP out there 300 pips above where we're at. You know what? Typically your 1 minute, range on a 1 minute candle, is sitting there, 1.5 to 3 pips, and a big candle is 5 pip, a news candle, sure, that could be a 20 or 30 pip candle, but that's a rare event, so from that perspective, a 1 pip, 2 pip, or 3 pip move, it is noise. I'll give that to them. I'll grant that to them.
Well,
Not a problem.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is, I think a lot of times in Forex, we forget, we're talking about pips, and a pip is 1/100th of a penny.
Right, exactly.
And so these guys that are playing with millions of dollars, they're not really interested in anything less than a penny. So, 100 pips. I mean, if this goes from 121.50 down to 120.50, that's only a penny.
Yeah, we changed the value of the dollar is changed by 1 cent.
Yeah, and the other thing is I don't know if those guys who are trading with millions of dollars are using leverage. I doubt they're using 1,000-to-1 leverage. So
no. They're probably not using any leverage with us. They're the ones that give us leverage. We don't need They don't need leverage. They got enough money sitting in the bank. You're sitting in there with an account size of $100 million. What do you need leverage for? It's just not a necessity in any way, shape, or form. But going back to what I was saying, the reality is that, from their perspective, yeah, it is noise. But here's the thing. Because we're sitting here and we're trading with high leverage, which is risky, money management again, always got to plug that. But when you're sitting there and you're playing with high leverage, a 1 pip move or a 2 pip move, as you say, 2/100ths of a penny, with high leverage, for us, that can mean some real dollars, because of the leverage position that you're in, and that's fine, and that's where we can make money on, it's on somebody else's noise. What is it? One person's trash, another person's treasure.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. That's your trash. That's my treasure.
Yeah, because I'm just looking here. We had a flip-flop box there, short at 55, and that's already up 5, almost 6 pips. And $10 a pip, that's $60. $100 a pip, that's 600. That's folding money in my world.
In my world, yeah, that's that pays for an electric bill or two.
Man,
You know,
you must have you must use a lot of electricity. $500 would be my electric bill for the year.
yeah, I think our electric bill here is probably $55, $70 a month. I was throwing that out as a utility bill, but yeah, you know, it's again, it's somebody else's trash is another person's treasure. So, you know, I would say that, tell the story that you need to go and tell yourself. If you're going to go and you're sitting out there and you're going to go and look at a weekly chart, or a monthly chart, and you know what, even big guys, even the little guys can be trading off those big charts, and why? Let's say you're the guy that's sitting there and you're working a job and you're working a job and you're working 12, 14 hours a day. You don't have the time to sit around like Tiro does or I do, where we sit around all day long watching for these moves, and so what do? Well, if you're going to go and trade Forex, or for that matter, any other instrument, well, what do? You sit there, you look at, you take your weekend, you take your Saturday, you map out all your charts, you look at the weekly, you look at your monthly, you may even look at your yearly charts, and you go and find all your quote-unquote support and resistance, which we talk about, that being another story, or your Fibonacci's or whatever story you've told yourself. And what do? You sit there, you say, okay, this is what I'm going to go out there, and as soon as my broker opens up on Monday morning, I'm going to go and I'm going to put my pending orders here with my TPs here, my stop losses here, and then I'm going to come back next Saturday and see what it did, and that's a great story. That can work. Are you going to make as much money? Probably not. Why? Because unless you got a heap load of cash sitting in the bank where you can go and put a heap load of lots against it, you're probably not going to make a lot of money. But can you make money doing it? Absolutely. And it could be a nice, quote unquote, I would call it not active, income, and I wouldn't call it passive income, something in between, because you got to do some active work on it. But at the same time, you're walking away from it. You literally, what do you call that? Set it and forget it, right?
Right. Yeah, I call it place your bets.
Yeah, and that could be a very nice way to go make some money. And again, for the person who's doing that, this up and down 10, 15 pips, it's nothing. It's not what your goal is. I mean, yesterday we had a move, a daily range of 86 pips for the day. Probably for somebody like that that's making those type of bets, the reality is that it's a non-issue. It's a complete non-issue. 86 pip daily range, and it's probably not something that's going to matter in terms of where your entry was, where your stop loss was, and where your targets were. It may get you out because of other moves from prior days, but that's it. And so that's a story that you have to go and be willing to go and say, and be willing to live with that. And whereas for me, I'm sitting here and I'm worried over every tick of the chart. Not really, but you know what I'm saying. If I didn't have a money management scheme in place, yeah, I'd be worried about literally every tick of the chart, because every tick of the chart could put me out of business.
Right, right. Let's see, every tick of the chart. Let's see. We bring up F9. Those are the ticks. Back to the subject, and so they say everything below an hour is noise. But the reality is this tick chart, that's the true market. That's what the market is doing. And all these other charts are data compression. What do I mean by that? Over a period of time, you say, okay, here's the open, here's the low, here's the high, here's the close. So, about the lowest we can do is 1 minute on MT4. I think somebody out there has 30-second charts, but the point is that, the tick chart, that's the real chart. And I've been saying that for probably over a decade. And, people like to, argue, but the reality is all these other charts are made up for the ticks. And so how can you say these charts aren't noise if tick charts are noise? It's like saying if you add more, the more noise you get, the more signal you get. That just doesn't make sense to me. We lost you there, Walmal.
Yeah, I dropped out for some reason.
Yeah, and so if you want to look at an H4 chart and you say, well, that's not noise, but that H4 chart's made up of 4 H1s for every candle, or 8 M30s, so, or 241 minutes charts, and all those are made up of that tick chart. So I just think it's kind of ridiculous to say that this is noise.
Well, then, if you're going to go and call that noise, then I'm going to call your H4 chart, compounded noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And but at the same time, there are certain times of the day that we have what we call settled, a settled price. And what, more true in things like the stock market, because we have, a consolidated market where we have an absolute open for the day, we have an absolute close for the day, we have absolute 30-minute charts for the day, we have absolute price across no matter who your broker is, we have that consolidation. But even in Forex, there may be some settlement. And what I mean by that is that we know, that at the beginning of the hour, every broker, within reason anyway, saw this as what the opening price was for the hour. Every month, although we saw a big difference between your chart and my chart this month, but for the most part, every month opens roughly the same place, for every broker within 20 or 30 pips. And so we have that, consolidated, understanding of where price settled out at. And so we do have that. But the problem is, well, not the problem, but the reality is, it's not a problem, it's a reality, is how we got there. Do you consider that noise? Or do you just consider that, just the normal movement of the market as it goes and moves around and goes and does what it needs to do in order to get to where people believe something is worth. And that's what the whole point of, of a market is. The reality is, people who live outside the United States will understand this a whole lot better than people live in the U.S. In the U.S., you walk into a store, the price is marked on it, you buy it, okay? And there's no haggling, there's no nothing, okay? When I lived in Africa and I went into the market and I wanted to buy tomatoes, what would happen is, you have a conversation about friends and family and all that, and then what happens is, I say, I want to get 6 of those tomatoes. I like those ones there. They're pretty nice tomatoes. And the guy will come back with a price and say, I think it's worth this. And I'll say, no, I think it's worth this. And we'll go back and forth, maybe 5-10 minutes, haggling over price, back and forth. Why? Because what's happening is he's got an idea of what those tomatoes are worth, and I got an idea what those tomatoes are worth, and somewhere in between we're going to go meet. And
or not.
That's what the market's. Or not,
yeah.
Because that could happen too. But more times than not, we meet, and that's what the market is. That's what Forex is. We're haggling over price, as to what we think the dollar is worth against the pound at this moment in time, based on whatever it may be. It may be fundamentals. It may be technical. It may be statistics. It could be there's many, many things, lots of stories as to what it could be over.
And speaking about time, well,
we're almost out, I'm sure.
Fastest 15 minutes in trading is just about over. So, fellow traders, what story are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself that, certain charts are noise and certain charts are signal? Because depending on that story, it depends on where you trigger in, where you exit out. And always remember and never forget, it's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. So go out there and drain the banks. This is the Rumpled One, over and out.